Okay, continuing our factoring. Let's review first what our first steps of factoring are. So up here I'm going to write the steps. So, steps. First thing you always want to do is take out. Okay, second step is if we have two-term problems, they're going to be one of two kinds. If it's a square minus a square, and we should all know what that means by now, or it's a cube. So we should know how to factor both of those. Now we're on the third type of problem, and that's if it's a trinomial. Or some people just want to call these three terms. And I will do all of these the same way, okay? And what we're really going to do for all of these is unfoil them. Unfoil, okay? And then we're going to make sure, we're going to check our answer and make sure that it's correct. So let's get started. Number one. First step, can you take anything out? So there's three terms. Do they all three have anything in common? They don't. Okay? We can skip step two because step two is if there's only two terms. So we go to the third step. Now you'll notice that all of these problems look like the answers to FOIL problems. So we're simply going to unfoil them. We're going to figure out what was it before they ran FOIL on it. So make two parentheses, and then you're just going to figure it out. Okay, well think about it. If this is the first term, how do you get x squared? Well, the only logical thing is to go x times x. Okay? Now go to the last term. It's negative 8. So when you think about 8, what times what is 8? Most people would think 4 times 2. Okay? Now you have to figure out what signs to put in here, and are we getting the correct middle term? We should remember to get the middle, it's always O plus I. So we have first, we have last, and the middle is O plus I. So we want to do, remember I even did it in orange the other day. What's the O and the I? This is 4x, and this is 2x. If I make the 4 negative and then I add those together, I would get negative 2x, which is our middle term. So I want to put a minus sign here and a plus sign here. Negative 4 times positive 2 is negative 8, and I've got the correct middle. So this is factored. Again, how do you know when you're done? If you look at your parentheses, you should notice nothing can come out, and they're not square minus squares. So I call these unfoiling. You want to always check your answer. Number two. Again, ask yourself, can I take anything out? No. Is it a square minus square? No, it's a trinomial, so we're going to unfoil it. What makes x squared? X times x. 15. What's the first thing that you can think of that you multiply to get 15? Most people would say 5 and 3. Now it's okay if you go 3 and 5. It doesn't have to be in the same order as mine. Do the middle. That would be 5x and 3x. I want a positive 2, so I need to subtract 3. So I want to go minus 3 and plus 5. And I know that positive 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. So I have my last term correct as well. You always want to check it with your foiling. Okay, if you want to erase this when you're done, you can do that. All right, do it again. X squared plus 5x plus 6. Doesn't have anything in common, and it's got three terms, so we know we're going to unfoil it. What makes x squared? X times x. What makes 6? 2 and 3. Okay, do the middle. You get 2x and 3x, and if I add those, I can get 5. So I want to go positive and a positive. Does that give you positive 6? Positive 2 times positive 3 is positive 6. So you've got that correct. Oops, erase my parenthesis. Always check them. Make sure you have the right answer. There isn't any reason to get these wrong. Number 4, we're going to go unfoil, x and x, 4, so most people would say 2 and 2. Well, we're just guessing. That's 2x and 2x. Can I get 5 in the middle? Not with 2's, so that didn't work. So my guess is wrong, so I better try again. What's another way to get 4? 4 and 1. Now I've got 4x and 1x, and I want them to both, or I want to get a negative 5. So this is a negative up here. So they both need to be negatives. And if they're both negatives, will I get a positive 4? Negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4. So it's very important that you check, because if you don't check and you just put 2's in there, you don't have the right answer. Okay? Now these are called type 1 problems. Okay? We call them type 1 because you can see that the coefficient of the x squared term is a 1. So those are the easy ones. All right? They get a little bit harder when you put coefficients on front. So here are a little bit harder ones. I'm going to do it the same process. First of all, can I take out a 2, a 5, and a 3? Have nothing in common. 3 terms, so I need to unfoil. So make your 2 parentheses. Now, I can't just put x and x in there because it's 2x squared. So what would make 2x squared? 2x times x. All right, now I need to make a 3. Most people will know that that's just 3 and 1. So you're just putting them in there and seeing if they're in the right spot. So I get 3x, and on the outside I get 2x. Can I get a 5? I want a positive 5. Okay, it looks like I could just add those together. So then kids would put a positive and a positive. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is we need to get a negative 3 here. And I've got a positive 3. So what we have is not working. Okay? This is not working. So we got to try something else. So we're guessing and now we're checking. So maybe if we put the 3 here and the 1 here, because I don't get any other choices for 3. That would be 1x, and this would be 6x. Okay, I want a positive 5, so I better subtract that 1. So subtract the 1 and add the 3. That would give me negative 3. So very important that you check. And you want to erase that so you have your answer. All right, number 6. Again, can you take anything out? No. Unfoil. Well, what's your only option for 3x squared? When you only have one option here, it doesn't make it too hard. It's when you have more than one option that it gets hard. We only have one option. It's 3x and x. Okay? What's your first guess for 8? People would say, well, 4 times 2 is 8. Now, you'll start to get good at this as you do them. Now, you got to think about it. If you put the 4 here, you know you're going to multiply it by 1. If you put the 2 here, you're going to multiply it by 3. So that's going to give you 6. So we've got our 4x and our 6x. Okay? So you kind of start to think about that ahead of time to see, make sure your numbers don't get too big. I want to make a 2. I should subtract the 4. So I need to put the minus here and the plus here, which would give me negative 8. Okay, again, how do you know you're done with these problems? Just like before, you can't take anything out of either parenthesis, and they're not square minus squares or cubes, so you know you're done with the problem. All right, number 7. What's the first step of factoring? What can we take out? Do they have anything in common? Yes, they have a 2. We have to take that out first. We'll get 5x squared plus 7x minus 6. All right, now this number that you take out just comes along with the rest of the problem. So you can't just ignore it. You didn't get rid of it, okay? It's still in the problem. Now I've got a trinomial, so I should try to break that down. So I need to make my 2 parentheses. What's your only option for 5x squared is 5x times x. Now 6. Most people would start with a 2 and a 3. Okay, now think about it. Whatever you put here has to get multiplied by 5. So do you want to put the 3 here and get 15? Or do you want to put the 2 here? Well, I want to get a 7. So I better put the 2 because that makes a smaller number. So I'll put the 2 there and the 3 there. That'll be 3x and 10x. Well, I want to make a 7. So if I subtract the 3, so minus 3 and plus 2. Does that give you negative 6? Negative 3 times positive 2, negative 6. So that works. Okay, number 8. Can you take anything out? What do these 3 terms have in common? Well, they have a 3 and they have an x. Okay, so if we take that out, we divide and we get x squared minus 2x minus 8. Okay, now why aren't you done? Okay, this is still got 3 terms, so you got to try to break that down. You might be done, but you have to try to break it down first. If it doesn't break down, then you would be done. Okay, how do you get x squared? X times x. How do you get 8? 4 and 2. Now I'm not as careful about where to put those because these are ones, so it doesn't really make a difference. So I have a 4x and a 2x. I want negative 2. So I'm going to make the 4 negative and the 2 positive, and that will give me negative 8. So now we're completely done because these are not square minus squares because the x isn't square. This isn't even a minus. Okay? I added this little picture of a beach because I wish that I were sitting on a beach. I don't like this cold weather. Okay? 2 more. 2 more and then we'll be ready for tomorrow. All right, now this one looks goofy, Miss Gonski, because it has an x to the 4th. It's okay that it has an x to the 4th. This is still just 3 terms. So do they have anything in common? Well, the first 2 do, but not the third one. So it has to kind of be all or nothing. So you can't take anything out. So we're going to unfoil it. And we're just going to say, well, what makes x to the 4th? X squared times x squared. Okay? What makes 8? 4 and a 2. Okay, well, what's that middle? 4x squared and 2x squared. I want negative 2. So I'm going to make the 4 negative and the 2 positive. Okay? But wait a second. This is a square minus a square. So it can be broken down into x plus 2, x minus 2. Can you break down x squared plus 2? Well, 2 isn't squared, so no, and that's a plus sign, so definitely no. So if you can't break it down farther, it just comes along. Now it can come along in the front or in the back. It doesn't make a difference what order your answer is in. Okay, so that's factored completely. And number 10, finally. Take out the 3, get x cubed minus 8. That's got 2 terms. That's a cube problem. We need to apply the rule. Okay, so we know it's x minus 2. Then I'm going to square the first one, change the sign, multiply them, and square them. And this will never go farther. Never goes on. Okay, so don't waste your time trying to break that down like we were doing all these other trinomials. It never will. And that's it for trinomials. So tomorrow we'll practice in class.